Okay, let's do this. We've got this program. Let's go ahead and go into the main routine and make sure we're calling it. We are. Very good. Let's go up to Logic, Verify the entire controller, and look at that. I've got 4 different errors. The first one is I don't have an initial step configured. So my initial step is going to be this guy right here. Let's go ahead and set that now. Done. So we have an initial step. And then the next one is off logic can't be reached, standby can't be reached, operation can't be reached. Well, those couldn't be reached because we didn't have an initial step. So now that we do, I can come up here to logic and re-verify this, and look at that. Now there are no more errors. So we've got a verified program now. I'm going to go ahead and save this, and then let's go to Communications Who Active and find our PLC. That's going to be on the virtual chassis, and that's our 5000 emulate. So let's set our project path. We've got it. And now let's download this thing to our processor. It says failed to go online, and that's because we didn't configure the controller onto slot 2. So let's go ahead and do that now. Gotcha. Communications, download once again, and I bet it finds the processor now. Perfect. So we are loaded up, and now let's go ahead and put this thing into run mode. And just like that, our SFC is running, and you can see that we've got the off tag highlighted, so that means that we're in this step. And if I come over here and hover over system mode, you can see that the value of that equals 0. So we are in that step. So now we can go ahead and right click on our start button, and let's pull up a monitor for that. And now we can actually monitor and see our different values right here. I'm going to go ahead and set our start button equal to 1. And as soon as I do, look at that, we transition down to standby. And if we hover over our system mode, you can see that the value equals 1. So we've made it to the next step. And I'm going to set my start button back to 0. And then let's imagine that somebody came in here and hit the stop button. So I'm going to come down here, set our stop button equal to 1, and well, we popped back up into the off mode. So that is working exactly like we want. Let's try and flow through our other steps instead. So this time we're going to go ahead and put our start button to 1. Then we can turn it back to 0. Now we want to go into operation. So let's go ahead and set our operate value to 1. And there we are. And we can see if we hover over our system mode that the value is 2. We can also scroll down here in our tag browser, and there we have our system mode as well, and we can see that that's also equal to 2 here. Let's go ahead and take that operate value back to 0, and from there we can hit the stop button again. I think we've already tested that transition in one place, so we can be sure it's going to do the same thing here. Instead, let's go ahead and try our alarm reset and alarm exists. So the first thing we need to do is set alarm exists equal to 1. And then we need to set our alarm reset equal to 1 as well. And once we do, there we go. We're right back up to standby. And hovering over our system mode, we can see system mode equals 1. So there is a very, very, very basic demo of a sequential function chart. That's how we can create one that is kind of ugly and kind of sucks a little bit, but actually works and demonstrates the principles of what this thing is doing. We've also seen a really good example of a really bad function chart, and you have to plan ahead when you're creating sequential function chart logic. This isn't just something you jump in and decide to wing it. Ladder logic is good for that. You can jump in and just start throwing down rungs and change your mind and reorganize and rework it as you go. that's no problem. You have an eraser. But when it comes to sequential function charts, it really helps if you sit down ahead of time and write this stuff out with a diagram. What are my steps going to be? And, you don't want to be branching out into 4 or 5 or 6 different possible transitions coming out of a single step. You can do it, but I mean to tell you, it's not great. Unless all of those, divergent steps are going to come back to just 1 or 2 possibilities, then if you've got that many different, possible paths, you really don't need to be programming that with a sequential function chart. And whenever you get into the mechanics of everything that's happening in the system, whenever you've got, all kinds of different timers running and counters running and things like that, you can do that in a sequential function chart, but those details get lost when you're viewing the process. So usually somebody will do a sequential function chart to guide the rest of the program, meaning that you'll have a very high level functionality here, just like we've set up. We're going to be either off, standby, operation, or alarm, or maybe just operation and bury the alarms within that. And, this is going to govern the rest of the program, but then we're also still going to have some function block diagrams running in the background. We're also going to have some ladder logic, which is, evaluating what our level switches are doing and, when we should transition modes. And then those transitions are just going to come out here, and we're going to, use one Boolean, something like operate, and that's going to, do the mode change in the sequential function chart. But the real mechanics of the program are actually going to be happening in a ladder. So is it possible to do everything in here? Yes, and I dare you to try it. You're not going to have a good time doing everything in a sequential function chart or even a group of sequential function charts, but it is possible. That being said, it is not practical. So take that to heart, and I really wish you guys had a copy of 5000 that you could practice this stuff with for now. But, be a little bit patient. Don't worry. We've got one more technology to go through that you're not going to be able to emulate, but you will be able to actually work with hands-on. So, you're going to slowly get into this. You're going to start by seeing it, then you're actually going to get to start creating it, and then finally you're actually going to be able to be testing it as well. So, you gotta crawl, then you're going to walk. Then you're going to run. That's all right. That's how it's going to get you up to speed and make a programmer out of you. When we come back, we're going to jump into our next paradigm. We still have 2 more paradigms to cover in 5000 before we get to the next technology. So I'll see you then.